Christian Freeland and the Liberals cry wolf and sexism. I'm Brian Lilley with TheRebel.Media. You heard about the cancelled event Joe Oliver had at a private men's club in Toronto. Ezra talked about this the other day here on The Rebel. Well, Oliver was scheduled to speak to, yes, what is a private men's club. It was a luncheon. Members and guests were invited, and guess what? There were women in the audience because membership of the club is open to men only. Men are allowed to bring guests, including women, to the club. That was the case with this particular dinner. It didn't seem to matter to Freeland that members of her own party, including George Smitherman, a well-known Toronto Liberal, Rocco Rossi, former director of the Liberal Party here in Ottawa, the Federal Party, he's spoken to the club. Olivia Chow, New Democratic Party, and former MP, mayoralty candidate in Toronto, they'd all spoken to the club as well before mixed audiences. And it didn't seem to matter to Freeland that, well, there's a private women's business club in Toronto as well. She just wanted to show up and make a show of it all. And that's what she did with obliging reporters in tow.
Appropriate to have a private briefing from the finance minister here, and not appropriate to have the Liberal trade critic and actually MP for this area to speak to a few reporters in your foyer?
Number one,
is it because I'm a woman?
No, ma'am. I would prefer if you didn't. And number two, if you'd like to address this club on some political matters that you think are appropriate, we'd love to have you.
I like the way that Clive Caldwell handled that. He pointed out that Freeland was welcome to come and speak, and they'd be happy to have her. But then he went on to point out something else.
The country allows single-sex fitness. The largest single-sex chain in the world is Curves. Men are not welcome, although women are welcome here.
Curves. And of course, there's also women's only Good Life centers in supermarkets across much of Ontario, if not the whole country. There is this push on to say that women gathering together on their own is not sexist. Men gathering together on their own is somehow sexist. We can debate the merits of Joe Oliver speaking to this club as opposed to a much more public one, but he was invited to speak and he went. Freeland wants to make it as if it's some exclusive Tory-only event. No, definitely not the case. Definitely not in downtown Toronto. This is a woman who was also part of the Ladies' Night for Justin Trudeau. You remember that. You get to know Justin Trudeau, find out what his favorite virtue is. It was an event sold to women across Toronto at $250 a ticket that relied on Justin's sex appeal as a way to move those $250 tickets. That was the event, by the way, where he told the audience that the country he admires most, China, because of their basic dictatorship. Is this just a double standard for the Liberals? Is Freeland not actually thinking? It's probably the latter, maybe a bit of the former as well. Freeland, while debating the issue of income splitting in the House of Commons earlier this year, actually got up and said, you can't have income splitting or women are just going to stay at home.
But the gender impact is significant too. And the effect of income splitting is to discourage married women from entering the workforce.
Now, excuse me, but isn't that actually sexist? Thinking that if you give women choices, they're automatically going to fall back into June and Ward Cleaver and Leave It to Beaver days? Women should have the choice to go into the workforce if they want, stay home if they want. Freeland wants to structure a tax system that tries to force more women into the workforce. And yet she's crying sexist at Joe Oliver for going to speak to a men's club? None of this makes any sense. Oh, and by the way, she was also whining about the fact that the Conservatives and the NDP have backed out of a women's-only debate, a women's issues debate, sorry. They just don't see it. They don't see it, and it kind of leaves me speechless. We can have women's-only clubs. We can have women's issues debates. We can have women's caucuses that gather at times on Parliament Hill. We can have women's nights for Justin Trudeau. But speaking to a mixed audience, men and women, at a men's-only club, that is a true show of the patriarchy. Christian Freeland is fooling herself if she thinks anyone takes her seriously as an MP anymore. She's fooling herself if she thinks anyone takes her seriously as a real economic star or advisor to Justin Trudeau. Her best days are long behind her, and those days were when she was in New York, going on MSNBC and pontificating about all things political. Given her less than stellar track record since coming back to Canada to take the downtown Toronto seat she occupies, maybe she should have stayed in New York.